top tier from everything I've ever sewn, I think. Today you see an amazing statement type of dress in this amazing red broderie anglaise with beige embroidery on it. It's long, so it's different for me. A bit of a labor of love, but so worth every single hour this took. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and today I'm going to share with you a really special dress I made a couple of months ago. I actually made it before leaving to the UK. It's a summer dress. It could be a winter dress as well. It depends on the fabric and the options that you choose. And this is from Style Arc. It's called Hampton. So just the title of the dress makes it sound a little bit fancy. Check out the liner. There is a lot of seam lines here. This is a shirt dress. So it's got classic features like shirt dresses. The placket, it's a separate piece that you sew on. And there's a collar and collar stand. Those are classic features. You can do it sleeveless with binding, or you can do a regular long sleeve with a little pleat and a cuff with a slit. My dress is sleeveless. I will always get so much more wear and use out of a sleeveless garment over here. And plus this dress is the one that takes up way more yardage than what I'm accustomed to. So if I would have added on a sleeve, I think I would have had some type of meltdown. You know I'm the sleeveless person, right? The bodice is very different. See the cut lines there. There's a diagonal seam that separates the length of this center front piece. Otherwise it would be super long. So it's decorative. There's no shaping there. But there's princess seams that come from the shoulders in the front right here. The back is simple. It's cut on the fold, but it dips lower in the center back. It's part of the design, and there are waist studs at the back. The skirt doesn't start gathering here from the center. It's from here all the way across the back. So nice. It's a long skirt. It's not as long as I would want it to be. It's described as a midi tee or midi. I measured the original length to hit at the middle of my calf, which is not a length I am very keen on at all. I either do short or long. So you can always change that. And at the bottom, there's hem facings. As a special detail for all of you who like inseam pockets, there are inseam pockets there, not my jam. Especially these that you can't anchor them at the waist because they're much lower. The waist here is a little higher with the gathers, so you can't really anchor them there. So they will just dangle about your upper thigh. I find that super uncomfortable. It adds bulk to the hips. I don't put things in there, so yeah, I don't do that, but it's there. I think a lot of people like the pockets. Light to medium weight woven fabric. I think the easiest for you to work with here, considering all the designs and all the seams we have, is a type of structured woven. The lightweight type would be better. Remember, there are gathers. It's not around the whole waist, so I wouldn't go too heavy. Cotton lawn, shirting, chambray, linen rayon blend, linen cotton blend would be amazing. My choice is a red broderie anglaise that is amazing, just amazing. And you've actually seen this fabric on a shirt I made, the About Town shirt from Pattern Emporium last year. I actually made that shirt with the leftover after making this dress because I had a bit left over. So just check it out. I'll show you the shirt here so you can see. I could just imagine this, and I just had hearts in my eyes just imagining how this was going to turn out, because I think the fabric is amazing. I cut the whole dress with the fabric on the cross grain because the embroidery, I want it vertical. I didn't want the flowers going sideways, so you'll see that when you see it on. It doesn't change anything. It's cotton, 100%. I washed it twice to make sure it shrunk as much as it needed to, so I'm not concerned about cutting it on the cross grain. Now, if you want a drapey, I wouldn't use really lightweight rayon. I think the features would look a little bit floppy. You'd have to use pretty heavy duty interfacing for the collar and collar stand. If I want a drape, I'd use rayon twill or a rayon crepe. A tencel would be amazing. But I went structured this time, and because I didn't have red interfacing, I used a contrast red linen for the collar stand, and the placket. And because my broderie anglaise has all these openings, I didn't want white or black interfacing poking out through there. So I found some matching red leftover linen. I always keep all my scraps because they can work for things like this. It's the exact same tone of red. I think it looks amazing. So that's a little trick you can do. You need a little bit of interfacing for the collar stand, the placket, and if you're doing the long sleeves, for the cuffs. Sizing is from 4 to 30 Australian. On Style Arc, when you look at the pattern and the instructions, they give you the finished garment measurements there, but not the body measurements chart. That is on the website. So I always have to go to the website to look every time. It's easy to find. I'm a size 14 Australian, so knowing what the body measurements are for 14, I can go to actual pattern and see what the finished measurements are. Around 3 inches of ease for the bust, around 7 for the waist, lots at the hips because of the gathered skirt. B cup, so I always knew I was going to do a full bust adjustment, especially with the princess seam. I wanted the fit to be top notch, so I'm going to have 1 extra inch of ease at the bust and the waist because of this, but then I can take away that extra ease at the waist. I really wanted to do this full bust adjustment. I also am making my skirt 3 inches longer. I'm going to show you my fitting process, how I did that full bust adjustment, just so you can see it done on the princess seam and how I adjusted the center front piece, my length adjustment. You can see a fabulous mustard color non-wearable bodice that I sewed, and then the pattern pieces, the interfacing. All the sewing from beginning to end in great detail is on my Patreon page. This is a pattern I sewed over there. I've had my Patreon page since 2019. I post a very detailed sew along there and exclusive content. Patterns like this that are a little more extra effort, you could certainly get them done if you look at the sew along there. You're welcome to join. You can stay a little bit or a long time. It's up to you. Please consider joining only if it's financially possible for you. If you do join, I'm super grateful and you're welcome. You have so much more of me over there on Patreon. This is a side front piece for the bodice. These are princess seam that comes from the shoulder. Along this curve, we have a notch right there, we have a notch right here, and we have one there. This one is the one that marks the fullest part of the bust there. Stout arc has the seam line printed on, so you don't have to draw it in. I think that's amazing. The other pivot point is going to be about a third of the armhole. So if you were to divide all of this length into 3, I would choose the lower third. So this is not an exact thing, but let's make that the next pivot point. If we look at this curve and this dot that I drew here, this comes in like this. So I'm going to move this dot a little further that way, just so I can have a line that is going to be within the seam line here. So I'm just going to bring this back about 1 inch, and that's actually going to be my pivot point. I'm just adapting to the shapes that I see here because I want to draw a line straight down. So I've got that grain line mark, I've extended it. I'm going to place it along one of the lines of my cutting mat so I've got it all nice and neat. Now I'm going to draw this line down, parallel to the grain line mark. It's a short little piece because we have a skirt coming down. So that is the first line, the vertical line. Then from here, we go to the armhole, and then the next one is straight across. Actually, the pattern already has a line there. It's where I've joined papers. So that is the next line. This one has to be a 90-degree angle with the grain line right here, perpendicular to it. Those are all the lines that we need right there. So first, we're going to cut from the bottom up here. Then we cut from here to the armhole. But we don't cut all the way to the edge, just up to the dot that's at the seam line. Then from the edge, we cut up to the seam line, and that's a little pivot point right there. And from here, we cut from the side seam up to this pivot point right there. Okay, so we are able now to play with this and open it as much as we need. If you're going to open up 1 inch, for example, I'm going to use my cutting mat here. I'm going to place that parallel to this one and this one parallel here. You can see that the dot that opens up is much bigger. So that's what you would do if you wanted to take this from a B to a D cup, for example. Then fill it all up with paper underneath. You can see this is coming up short right there. This is going to be shorter the larger the full bust adjustment you make. I'm going to do a full bust adjustment from a B to a C cup, which means I only need to add 1/2 inch here. So I need to get this to be parallel here. While doing that, you can see I'm opening up a dot right there. It's not going to come up that much shorter right here. So I'm going to take a piece of paper. I have already drawn 1/2 inch there, which is what I want to do. I don't need it to be that long. So I'm going to slide this underneath right there. Match that up. Remember, I have that dot that's opened. This needs to be parallel to this with the opening that I need, which is only 1/2 inch. So I'm going to fiddle with this until I'm happy. I'm going to put this pen there to hold it, and then I'm going to start taping it down. Here on this little area, I'm going to cut it across so that I can bring it down to match what I need here. So let me draw a line at the bottom so it can keep that slanted shape. I'm going to cut across here before I tape it down. Just needs to be a little higher than where you were. I'm going to scoot this down to match that angle. Now remember, if you're doing a larger full bust adjustment, this is going to come down much more than this is going to. Now I'm going to keep taping this up here. Remember, this has to be parallel. You can see how much length I added there. It's a very small amount, like 1/4 inch with this adjustment. I'm going to fill up the gaps with the yellow. Right here, this dot, right here, this little section here. And then we're going to see what happens when we close up this dot, because we have a princess seam. We don't want to add a dot there. We want to close it up. Okay, so everything's filled up. I'm going to trim away this excess at the bottom, following that shape. There's a little excess yellow right there. I'm going to trim away over here. Now, you can see that when we started, this was the bust height of the princess seam. Now it's a little lower. It's about 3/8 of an inch lower. That's what happens when you do a full bust adjustment. So that's why I wouldn't worry about lowering or raising the bust height until after we have done this. So the first step would be the full bust adjustment, and then figuring out where the fullest part is here on the curve. I'm going to extend this line there. That's going to be a pivot point, and I'm going to cut the bottom of the dart leg to that pivot point. So cut it here, and then from the edge here to that pivot point. And now we're going to close up this dart. All we have to do is just close it up. You can see it's that easy. It doesn't exist anymore. It's still flat. When you close that up, it's going to open a little gap right here. In this case, it's opening up a little gap that is negligible. It's very, very small. If I'd had a larger dart, the gap that would open would be bigger. I'm going to fill up that gap so you can see it. What matters is the gap at the seam line, which is there. It's like a 1/16 of an inch, which is negligible. I'm not going to be adjusting a 1/16 of an inch on the length of the center front piece because it's basically nothing. But I do want to adjust this right here that I have at the bottom, which is about 1/4 of an inch. Now, if you did a larger full bust adjustment, you added an inch here, and you got maybe an 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch right here, and then a 3/8 there, then you would need to adjust this as well. It's just that I'm opting not to adjust this tiny amount, but if it was bigger, I would adjust that and that. For this dress, the center front has 2 pieces, and there's a diagonal seam there. I have overlapped these seams, so it's good. Luckily the seam lines are printed on there, so I just overlap them. It's super easy, just to uncomplicate things basically. So that notch that we have here is the one that's going to match this notch that we have here. It's unchanged. The change that has happened below that. So this notch is still going to match that one's still going to match this. Everything's going to match up to here. Perfect. It's just that from here down, this notch that matches that one here is not going to match because we have a longer area here is where we need to add the amount that we need. And I'm going to add it all the way across the center. Let's find that grain line mark. They do them so short, you know, I'm just extending it. When I extend it, I can use this ruler, put the flat edge of the ruler against that, and draw a line that's perpendicular above that waist notch. So this is where I'm going to cut open, spread apart, and add this little amount that I have here, which in my case is 1/4 of an inch. If you're doing a different adjustment, it might be more. This is going to ensure everything matches. Your notches are still going to match. There I've marked the 1/4 of an inch that I need, and I'm going to tape it down. Now remember, I'm just adjusting this amount. I'm not adjusting that tiny, tiny amount. But if you had that tiny amount there, then just to make it easier, and just because this shape is sort of straight, I would just add them and then add it all in one go above that waist notch, and then this is going to match right there. So that's basically it. What I want to see is the bust height, because this is an adjustment that comes after the full bust adjustment. This fullest part here might not necessarily match mine. I'm going to overlap them like sewn right there, seam lines on top of each other, and from the high point of the shoulder, I'm going to measure down. I know my bust height, and right here, it's 31 centimeters on the pattern. Mine is 32 centimeters. So we have this notch here. We have that grain line mark right there. Let's just draw a rectangle up to there. I'm going to cut about 1 inch above the notch. I'm going to draw a mark. So I'm going to cut this rectangle out. I'm going to put some paper behind right there, the amount that I need. So I'm going to measure how much I need right here. So I'm going to add 1/2 inch. And then I'm going to tape this there. And this just brought the curve down here. It hasn't changed the side seams at all. It's just brought the curve down. Okay, we have lowered that bust curve right there. In essence, if I measured the seam line right here, it hasn't changed by lowering the bust height. I've just lowered the curve. So I haven't added half an inch here. I've just lowered that there because it's overlapping here. This little notch that's at the fullest part was supposed to match that seam right here. If I overlap where we have that seam allowance for the diagonal section here, that's where that notch would match, but it's not going to match anymore because we've lowered the bust height. So to keep it super simple and not mess with anything over here, all I'm going to do is eliminate this as a reference. I'm still going to have that seam, but this is going to match half an inch lower now. So I'm just going to draw that there. This is what I'm going to draw on my fabric so that I know that that's going to match there. It's going to be slightly below that seam, but it's still going to match at the waist and it's going to match at the top. That's the simplest way. There's no way I could cut a rectangle and do all those things that I would do over here with this because I would totally mess up the shape. So keeping it simple, I'm just going to lower the reference point, but not alter these pieces at all. Simple, simple. And now third step would be to alter the waist if you want to. So you see that we added half an inch here. There's gathering here at the bottom. There's going to be a gathered skirt section. So if you didn't change that, you'd just have a tiny bit less gathering, which is not a huge deal. But maybe if you had an extra inch or an inch and a half, it would be a difference. So then I would add a little bit to the side of the skirt if you didn't want to bring the waist in. But if you did want to bring it in, I would just take it from here, from the side, probably from about 2/3 down. I would start bringing it in because I don't need that extra waist ease, but you might need it or you might want it. So this is how I'm going to go back to the original waist that I have here. The gathers are going to be the same and I'm going to have the original waist ease. It's just that I have a little bit more space right there. Now you can see that all the changes here, all the little cuts in yellow, everything has not altered the side seam at all. It's just like it was in the original. So that's why you never have to change the back. Nothing has been touched here. It's still the original side seam. So you don't need to do anything here. Now there's one thing that I know that I want to do. This is part of the design. It's shorter on the front and then it curves down and it dips lower at the back. This is not where my waist height is. It's much lower. And I think I'm not a fan of that. You can see the line now. It's going to dip way lower. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and make it shorter here. I've drawn a line straight across. I'm going to leave that there as a pivot point. Now this is just my personal preference because I don't appreciate that curve going down so low on my back. So I'm just going to shorten it by an inch here just because I want to. I want to keep the curve the same so it matches the curve of the skirt, of course. I just don't want it that much lower. So from here, I'm going to measure an inch. So I've drawn my inch there. I've got that pivot point. I'm just going to make it shorter here. And then I have to fix this because I've messed with the center back. I've also messed up the dot. So just because I want it shorter, I'm going to have to fix this. So I'm actually going to take away that extra ease that was added there when I sort of pivoted this. And I'm going to add that back on right here. Now ignore this. You might not want to do this. I just want to do it because I don't want that to dip so low at the back. So I'm just going to add back 1/4 inch right here. I'm ending up with the same waist. Now check out this dot. It just went that way. So I'm basically going to move it 1/4 inch this way. So from all these little marks, I'm moving it 1/4 inch back to the center. And I'm just going to redraw this. And I fixed my dot right there. That's all I'm going to do. Now I'm going to confirm everything by sewing up a quick test of only the bodice. I'm not going to add the skirt pieces. I'm not going to add the placket or the collar. It's just going to be very simple and very basic just to check that everything I did, I'm happy with. These are the humongous skirt pieces. This is the back that's cut on the fold, and then this is the front. I've added 3 inches of length. This means that this center front piece, I also need to lengthen. So I'm going to choose a place so it matches that. I'm going to cut across, add the same 3 inches to the center front piece. I'm also going to have to make the placket longer by 3 inches.
So this is something I've done after the fact. I still need to modify these, easy peasy. Okay, all the skirt pieces are fixed, center front, button placket. Now, why am I doing this like this? Why don't I just add it from the hem? And that's because this one has hem facings. So the hem facings need to match the shape that we have at the bottom, so we can't really mess with that. Any change needs to be made higher. Whether you want to make it shorter or longer, above, way above, I've got a good 6-7 inches right here, free space, because the facing is quite wide as well. So here I'm safe. I've got the extra length that I wanted, but I haven't distorted the bottom. This is my test bodice, soda size 14. I've pinned it right here on the edge. This isn't the true fit. It's more fitted now because the placket is missing, but I'm happy with this. I wanted to check this princess seam curve, which is perfect. The amount I lowered it is perfect. The full bust adjustment, everything's lying super smooth. I also wanted to check the shoulder, and it's really good as well. I don't have to do any shoulder adjustment. I'm going to lengthen the sleeve a little bit more. I'd added an inch. I'm going to add another inch because right here with the cuff on, it's at my wrist, that little bone there. Definitely want it longer than that. I'm also happy with the sleeveless armhole here. It is the same armhole for sleeveless or the sleeve. I don't have gaping. That's because the bust fits well and the coverage is perfect. So all I have to do is bind that armhole and stay stitch that at the beginning. Then it's supposed to taper down like this, and then it's a little longer at the back. I can cope with this length at the back. What I had originally would have ended down here, which I wasn't happy with, knowing I'm going to have a little bit more ease because there's going to be a placket right there. I don't have a placket right now. These are the only pieces that need interfacing for the Hampton dress. Of course, the collar stand and the collar, I've got them right here. I'm going to block fuse. That's why the fabric is larger. It's already been interfaced, and now I'm just going to trim. I'm only going to interface one of these. So this one on top is interfaced, the layer on the bottom isn't, and it's the same for the collar piece over here. That long piece that you see there is the button placket piece. I've actually already cut that, so you're not going to see that. I also blocked fuse that. And I got these red linen pieces out of a leftover, so I didn't have much. So towards my shin area, I have added a little seam. It's going to be super discreet, and if anyone's nosy enough to look at my shins, we have issues. Now, if you're doing the long sleeves, your cuffs are also interfaced. I'm just doing one sleeve just to demonstrate. I'm not going to waste interfacing on this fake cuff, but please interface your cuffs. Seem like a broken record already if you've seen me sew and there's anything that's interfaced. This is how I do it to keep them the same original size and shape. The fabric, if it's reacted to the interfacing, it already has done that, so there's no shrinkage involved here with the piece. It's going to end up really, really accurate. These are the pattern pieces for the bodice of the Hampton dress. I've put them sideways just so you can see this long piece over here that's part of the center front. So there's an upper piece and a lower piece of the center front united by a diagonal seam. There's absolutely no shaping here, it's just a design feature. So this is the center front here, and this is the side front. Remember, there are marks here to help you join these together. And this is the back bodice. It's simple, it's cut on the fold, and there are waist studs marked right there. These are collar pieces, collar stand and collar. Just the upper layer is interfaced. The layer on the bottom is not interfaced. So that's for the bodice. Let me show you the skirt pieces. These are the skirt pieces. This is the front piece that's gathered onto that diagonal seam. It's wider there, it's going to be gathered. And this is the back. These are two pieces. This straight edge there is going to be sewn onto that center front piece. So in the front, we're going to have the skirt made out of two pieces in the end. The back is just one piece. It's quite wide. It's on the fold. It's curved there to match the shape of the bodice. And the hems are slightly curved as well. What you see down there are the hem facings. Now I have a nice structured fabric. It's not floppy at all. The instructions don't call for these facings to be interfaced, so I'm going to go with that. And this is how I'm able to use the same fabric for the facings. So I don't think it's going to be bad. I think for this fabric, if I would interface that, it would really weigh down the skirt and make it poofier. So I do agree with the facings not being interfaced just because they're made out of cotton. If I was working with rayon, something really drapey, there's no way I would do facings without interfacing them. So it's just the fabric choice is going to work this time. Now another piece I haven't been able to fit on the table is this super long placket that we have here. Both of them are interfaced. This goes all the way from the neckline all the way down to the hem along the center front. So that's another piece. Here are the sleeve pieces. I've just cut one. Now I'm not sure if the design of this skirt was meant to be at the wrist because I had to lengthen it by 2.5 inches for it to be full length for me. I would never consider wearing a sleeve that is bracelet length because then it just looks like it's not fitting well and it's too short. So consider that if you want it to be, I think it's meant to be up here, but I just added enough to make it be just below this bone right there. So at the bottom, it's slightly curved here. There is a little mark where the cuff is going to join because it's going to have like a split feature and 2 little marks for a little tuck or a pleat, like I would call it. On the top, you only have a single notch on one side and the one that matches the shoulder, but on the back, there's nothing. So that's different. Cuff is a regular rectangle. Remember, these need to be interfaced.
Check this out. I was just modeling it for you this morning and I was like happy for the whole day. It just made me feel so good. It's such a nice dress in this amazing color, in this amazing fabric. It's a statement dress. My contrast collar and collar stand right there in the red linen or interfaced. My placket is super long. From my scrap, I needed to add a little sneaky seam towards the bottom. You can barely tell that it's there. It's towards my shins, you know? So I don't think anyone's ever going to notice. I mean, who's going to be, you know, on the floor on their knees seeing the extra seam? I don't think so. So I'm never sad if I have to do something like this. I didn't have another piece of red, so it was either this or that. That was my only choice. I'm happy. Check out my cute little buttons. I have a bunch of them. There's so many. I mean, it took me ages to do the buttonholes and the buttons. My princess seams here, they come from the shoulders. This is what I mean about the vertical design of the embroidery. You see, that's why I had to cut it on the cross grain. Otherwise, it would have looked like this. And I think that is very strange. So you can see that the gathering starts from here. So here's the center front and here is the gathering from the skirt. And then it goes all the way across here. There's 2 little dots, green. And this curve dips lower. Mine is slightly shorter than the original length because I didn't want it to dip that low. I didn't modify the skirt piece at all and it still looks level. So I think if I would have kept it as the original with that curve a little lower, maybe my skirt would have dipped down a little lower at the back and I wouldn't have liked that. So that's the beauty of sewing. You can fix things and modify things. I haven't gone too much astray from the original design, just a little tweak here and there. And yeah, everything's so nice with this dress. It was really fun to sew. All the seams, the diagrams in the pattern were very well explained. I always have matching serger thread. All the seams are pressed open. There is a pretty wide hem facing right here. So that's nice. I'm going to show it to you just like it is. Nice and loose. No extra styling required because that's the beauty of a dress. You just put it on, get some shoes on, and you're set to go. This is how the Hampton dress turned out in my broderie anglaise. I know you're not going to see all the seam lines, you know, it would have been amazing in a solid, but I just really wanted this dress in this type of fabric. You know, if I'm going to make a long dress, it has to be really special, and part of that is the fabric for me. It's close to my ankles, probably like 1.5 inches above my ankle, 3 inches longer than the original length. Otherwise, it would have been right then 14. You saw the adjustments I made for bust adjustment, shorten the back. Even though I shortened the center back by 1 inch, the skirt is still even, you know, it's not shorter at the back. It's just so nice. Let me show you. My placket, collar stand and collar are in a contrast red linen right there, and the distance between the buttons is 2.25 inches. I have lots and lots of buttons. And then from here we have this diagonal seam right here, gathered. This dips lower. I would really dislike it if it was even lower than that, but this is acceptable. The waist starts right there. There's a comfy amount of ease at the waist, lots of ease at the hips right here. This seam that goes like this right there, it's non-perceptible. I can't see it, you can't see it. This would only be seen if it was a solid. I'm happy with the princess seam over here. The curve fits really, really well. I'm very happy I did the full bust adjustment. I used a red cotton to make the binding for the armholes. I didn't use the broderie anglaise.
And this is how the collar turned out. Beautiful, no buttonhole on the top. The right button for this dress, so it looks nice. Armhole, great coverage with the binding. It just turned out amazing. So this is a one-of-a-kind type of dress for me. I don't have anything like it. So comfortable and it's so beautiful.
Very pleasant amount of ease around the waist. I could wear it just like this. But one other alternative, let me show you this with a red belt, just so you can see what it looks like belted. It could be an option when I'm feeling like it. I will most likely wear it loose like it is because it's a style and it's the most comfortable, but the belt can be an option for some occasions. This is a striking dress. I'd love to make it again. The best thing about sewing is finding a beautiful design and then matching it up with an amazing fabric. You know, maybe someone else might have bought the same fabric here in Brazil. I bought it locally, but no one's going to have the exact same amazing dress, you know, with the custom fit and everything. And so I know that whenever I wear it, I'm going to head out and I'm going to be the only one in this dress. I love that. It's just the best thing. It took a while to make and everything, but it was so worth it. I think the fit is amazing. I still have all my pattern pieces with my adjustments. You know, maybe someday I'll make it again in another fabric. I like it this length. I wouldn't have liked it shorter. I don't have any affiliation with style art. I really like having the freedom of sewing how I like to sew because the instructions are mainly based on diagrams and that is completely meshed with the way that my brain thinks about sewing. When I see those diagrams, I know exactly what to do. I don't need any words. So that's what I like. And of course, the beautiful design. It's amazing. Have an amazing rest of your day. I'm going to see you again tomorrow with something super nice as well. See you then. Bye.